Hello, everybody. Welcome to the United Front. This is your match preview for Manchester United against City in the Manchester Derby, of course. Look, it's been a while. Obviously, international break happened, but I mean, bloody hell, a week goes by that quickly, and already the Premier League's back. So, and obviously a big game against City. So, but apparently, obviously, very big news for us, but also I mean, would you say advantage? I mean, I don't know. But obviously, it was a reason why I did this video because of Amra's press conference. Like, could he say anything that's entitled to the team news? Now, obviously, I'll talk about that, but we'll just obviously talk about City, who they're obviously missing. Obviously, Marmoush is missing. It's a huge loss. John Stones is also another doubt. Ain't Nori, Cherky, Phil Foden, Kusanov, Rico Lewis, Nico Riley, Savino, Kovacic, and Josko Garvadio. Apparently should be okay, but still question mark. So obviously we still need to see, but also Donnarumma he could make his debut. I don't see why not. I don't see why not he can't make his debut. Obviously, I'd rather have James Trafford in goal because at least you don't have a goalkeeper that antagonizes you. I think if he starts Donnarumma, it's not gonna be easy because like he's one of the best keepers and that's why City bought him. And there was a reason why we were looking at him. So but obviously talking about that, obviously with United, Cunha's out, Mount is out. And apparently, in what Amrin did say, in his press conference today, outside Bayern they will play. So Lamens won't, he won't obviously be starting against City, which I think is the right decision. I know most people will think, we bought him. Should he start? Should he we bought him. We bought a keeper for a reason. But I just think people need to realize we didn't buy any keeper. We bought a young keeper. And he needs settling time. And, put him in his first game against City. That's just, if that was me and Man United signed me, I'd shit myself. Despite, if I believed in myself thinking I could do a good performance against City. But I'd still be scared, Look, City is a big game, as we know. And it's going to be too much of a, big debut for him, So I think starting Bayern there, I don't see why is that a problem. Look, it could be a problem for other people because they dislike him. But, look, I think it's the right decision. The question is, when does he play? I don't want this thing happening with Sesko, easing him into the squad. And it's almost like, well, you wanted a striker. Are you going to play him or not? So, but this is the team I went with. So, pretty similar. I think 2 changes. No, it's 3 changes. 3 changes. So, Binder stays in goal. I was still going to go with Binder anyway because of, for Lamens, a big game against City, it's too much to ask for. And I don't want, because, look, if he starts that game, the media will be licking their lips. Because so many people have been saying, "Oh, United should have signed an experienced keeper," but obviously he's inexperienced in terms of not playing for the top 5 leagues. So, and look, he did play for a league that isn't even, I don't know, top 10. So, no disrespect to the Belgium leagues, but obviously, is that a league better than the Portuguese league or even the Eredivisie? I don't really think so. So, it is a big ask, but. Look, the media will lick their lips anyway, seeing him start to see if he's good or not, and that's about it. But I think Bayern there, look, I think he should be. Look, there are still obviously concerns about him, especially when it comes to corners, but I think when it comes to shot stopping or maybe his sweeper keeping ability, I don't see a problem with that. I think he is a good shot stopper. I think obviously that goal he conceded against Burnley, look, I think it was a bit unfortunate, but like, I think still people would say he should do better. So yeah, but I think he should start. Back three speaks for itself. Obviously, Martinez is still out. Um, the midfield two is interesting. Now, I know people would have Casemiro. Now, I'm not trying to have Casemiro, especially a team against City that their midfield is just gonna run through our midfield easily. So you need legs in midfield. I mean, if we're being honest, I put Manu and Ugarte because they're technically our best and balanced midfield. But you're going to come up against Reinders, you're going to come up against Bernardo Silva, Rodri. I don't know who could the other midfielder be. It could be Kovacic, but look, question marks. Um, Look, there's no Kevin De Bruyne, there's no Phil Foden, so who could play in that role? So that is the question. But I just think you need legs in midfield. Casemiro doesn't give you that, and Bruno isn't an 8. So obviously with Cunha out and Mount out, you probably put Bruno in the 10. I mean, you have to. I mean, I saw him against Burnley when Cunha came off. And there was a moment. There was even a moment where he played as a 10, and he was so it was so perfect, and it was balanced at the same time. You know, so look, I think he should play in the 10. I don't think he will because somehow it will be Casemiro and Bruno, which is it's just suicidal. But I think Ugarte and Menu, especially in midfield like Reinders, Rodri, and Bernardo Silva, which is possibly the midfield, it just has everything and it's got legs, you know. So obviously you need physicality, but Ugarte gives you that, but you need legs in midfield. And look, I just don't see Casemiro, Bruno able to cope with Reinders, Rodri, and Bernardo Silva. I think it's just suicide. Look, we saw this against Tottenham. They had Bissouma, they had Bentancur, and I think they had Sarr. And that midfield not only had legs, it had physical strength as well. So, and we played that same midfield, and look how we lost. We basically lost the midfield battle at times, despite obviously dominating Tottenham, but we still lost in the midfield battle. So, obviously, I expect City to dominate, but as we've seen from previous results, and they don't score in the first half, they do tend to, lose a bit of steam, and it's almost like they're in panic mode. So, but it is basically just like us, but, we just find a way for some reason. So, but look, I've always said in every game we play, it's better to get the first goal, because if City get the first goal, then we're just in the shits. So, I went with Ahmad. Look, I did want to put Mazraoui, but I thought, you know what? If I put Mazraoui, then who would I take out? Because I'm not taking out MBEUMO. I'm not taking out Bruno, and we do need a striker. So look, Mazraoui's coming back from injury, so I expect him to come off the bench. But look, I wouldn't be surprised if Amrin did go with a back five, but I won't be surprised if he doesn't once again start Sesko. So yeah. And Bruno speak for themselves unless Amrin does something which is out of the blue moon and put someone else in the 10 and somehow put Bruno in the 8. And Sesko has to start. You know what? I'm tired of it. I'm tired. Look, you know what? Talking about Sesko, right? I know I've been away because of international break, but it's so ironic how already people are doubting him already. I mean, the lack of patience is unreal. It's just unreal. Man United fans have no patience. I've been seeing comments from social media saying, "Oh, he's not good enough." I mean, I'm like, are you serious? He's only had one game where he started. Obviously, no service. He's come off the bench 3 times. He hasn't even started a Premier League game. And this is when we were playing. When I was doing my match preview for Burnley, I wanted him to start. Because if he started his first game, in his first Premier League start against City, then it's like, well, he has to perform. That's why I wanted him to start against, Burnley, so he could get so he could build some momentum or whatever. But obviously, look, if he does start against City, it's good. But at the same time, it's like with Lamens, you're starting him in a big game where he's just been coming off the bench. So look, I do hope he starts because we didn't spend money to fucking put him on the bench. You know, it's like buying Ronaldo. When we bought Ronaldo, we benched him for games like City, games like Chelsea. You know, you expect him to start, especially in those games. So, look, with Sesko, he's our number one. We don't have any other striker apart from Xerxes or Chilo. I mean, he's our number one. We've loaned Rasmus to Napoli. And look, I don't want to talk about him if he gets injured or not, because I've said this. If he gets injured, that means Xerxes has to go up front, and people don't like that. And then that means we have to face Chilo, which he's too young to do. So, look, I want him to start. Hopefully he starts. But the amount of comments, this is one of the reasons why I hate supporting Man United. It's because of the fucking fans. It's like, I support this club, but I see knobheads talking so much shit saying he's not good enough. And it's like, have you really given him a chance? Like, have you really given him a chance? You know, even, like, let's just say if it was an Arnold, right? And he made mistakes in his first 3 games. In each of the games. I wouldn't go say, fuck off, yeah. I'd obviously get pissed, but I wouldn't say he's not good enough. I'd obviously wait to a season and give him an overall, you know, rating. And that's what I'm going to do with Sesko, you know. But look, Sesko, would I say he's a learner driver in terms of Premier League experience? Yes, of course. Because that's where it's like, that's where you show your quality. But in Europe, I'm not going to say he's a learner driver because he has done it. He has played in Europe. So, you know, he can do it in big games. So, look, I want him to start. I'm tired of this false line bullshit. The only reason I'm happy Cunha's injured so that we don't have to play a false line. I mean, it's just tiring. So, and I've been hearing, I've obviously go back because apparently Amarin had some people saying Amarin didn't want Sesko, which I'll obviously talk about. But yeah, I mean, I've obviously lost into the Sesko story. So this is what I've gone with. I went with a 2-1 win. Now, I know people might say I'm deluded or whatever, but I'm thinking, why not? Because I've seen last season where we stepped up to the big teams. We just couldn't do it to the rest of the league. And obviously City on this bad run of losing. Look, they beat Wolves and we're thinking they're back. They lost to Tottenham and they lost to Brighton. And it's almost like momentum's not going their way. Now, obviously, they could bounce back and beat us, you know. But I just think with the injuries as well, and if you keep someone like Haaland, then look, apparently it could be, I don't know what could be the thing, the front three. It could be Oscar Bob, Doku, Bernardo Silva, Reinders, Rodri, and I don't know who the other midfielder is, to be honest. So, look, it's not going to be the strongest City side unless Phil Foden or Savinho pop out like that. Because look, they could play, but it's question marks. So it's like 50-50. But anything can happen. So, you know, we don't have Cunha, they're missing players. We don't have Mount, again, missing players. So, you know, look, Dorgu speaks for himself, and I feel look, I want to win the game, but I know on that side Doku can play and he could absolutely penetrate that left hand side. But look, Ahmad's not bad at defending, but against Doku it's gonna be tough. Yoro is obviously, we know how good he is. I think he can cope with it, but it's not gonna be easy. So I understand why people would think Mazraoui would make sense, but look, I didn't play him because, look, again, injury. Look, I know we had this international break, but I'm like, I want Ahmad. I couldn't leave Ahmad out. That's the thing. So, you know, but yeah, I went with this team. I went with 2-1. I went with Bruno, not Brun. Sorry for that. Bruno and then MBEUMO with the goals. Initially, it was gonna be Sesko, but I'm thinking, I bet he won't even start. So, you know, and surprisingly, I went with de Ligt. I went with de Ligt because if he keeps Haaland quiet, like, look, maybe if he scores one, let's just say he's the one that scored, but keeps him quiet throughout the game, I think he deserves a man of the match because it ain't easy keeping someone like Haaland quiet. It's not. You know? Well, obviously people saying he scored 5 against, I don't know who they scored, but they beat someone. They basically hammered someone. He scored 5 goals, and it's almost like, well, he could use as momentum to go into the Manchester derby. But look, if he keeps someone like that quiet, De Ligt, then that I see it as a positive. I see it as man of the match. I don't see why not, because he's the best striker in the world. I don't give a shit. You know, he is the best striker in the world. So, there's no questions about it. So yeah. So look, I went with 2-1. De Ligt man of the match. Bruno and then MBEUMO with a goal. I went with Bruno because of I think he has a goal against City. I think he's got a good record against City. And then MBEUMO, I'm just thinking momentum. So yeah. Yeah, that's my match preview. I did miss something. Oh yeah, Onana gone to Turkey. No. I normally would say I would do shows, but I said it as soon as the transfer window ended. I wouldn't really do a lot of videos because it's like there's nothing to talk about, you know. Unless obviously with Onana one I could have, but that would have been 5-minute talk. I mean, I don't really talk a lot about outgoings than I do about incomings, you know. So look, Onana's gone. Look, good for him, good for us. You know, it's even as it is. So, you know, look, we bought Lemons, see how he does. Buying there, let's see if he gets up in the speed. And yeah, that's about it. There was another one as well. Yeah, so yeah, okay, I wanted to talk about this. So apparently, this is, look, I don't know where this is coming from, but apparently people have been talking about it, and apparently people have been saying Amri didn't want Sesko. And I keep thinking to myself, why wouldn't Man United get a striker or player that Amrin would want? And I kept thinking to myself, I've seen this with Tanner, I've seen this with Oli, I've seen this with Mourinho or whatever. And they got players they want and they still failed. And it's almost like this apparently came from Christian Favel. Actually, he wanted Sesko. Amrin wanted Watkins. Or maybe Gyökeres when he was still available. But I'm thinking to myself, it's right we got Sesko, even if Amrin didn't want him, because that's the type of striker Amrin wants to work with. Someone who's young, with huge potential, a tall striker, because when we look at strikers that we've been looking at, Mateta, Gyökeres, Sesko, there was another one. But look, we've been looking at tall strikers, and it's almost like, well, we understand what type of striker Amrin wants. But I'm thinking to myself, if there's one player that can make Sesko to the player that he can be, it's Amrin. Because we've seen what he did with Gyökeres. Now, I don't know how old Gyökeres was. He probably was 24, but look, Gyökeres is the player that he is today. It's because of Amrin as well. You know, the way he came from Brighton, then he went on loan to Swansea, did decent there. Coventry did decent there as well, and obviously made his big move to Sporting, and he's the player that he is now, and he's playing for Arsenal. That comes down to Amrin as well, and I keep thinking to myself, that's how Gyökeres was, because Gyökeres was a nobody, and no one was looking at him, and Amrin made him to the striker that he is, and I'm thinking to myself, he could do that with Sesko. If there's one player that he can make with huge potential and make him a world-class striker, it's Amrin. I even said this about Højlund if he was going to stay. Amrin can make him into that striker. He can do it with Sesko. You know, obviously there are doubts because he hasn't been starting him. But it's almost like, I understand because you're trying to ease him into the Premier League, ease him into your system and what so, but he has to play him sooner. Otherwise, I don't really have a problem, but you do need to play him because you did want a striker, and he wasn't cheap. So, you know, but yeah, look. I mean, look, I did hear about this, and we're like, where's this news coming from? Because I don't really want to do news like that. That's why I enjoy the transfer news, because you were talking about stuff that was going on live. It was talking about players, who we could bring in, would he be good for Man United? Who we would compare him to? You know, that's why I like the transfer. But otherwise, ever since that ended, I just got bored of it. You know, like if there was some story that was breaking out, like if Man United got charged, let's just say, or Amorim got sacked, or the Glazers decided to sell, I'd do a video on that. But all these stuff that these people are making, I'm not criticizing them. They can do whatever they want. That's just not me, because it's like, is that what I really want to hear? Like for example, people could make a story like Mainu's not training well and make it trend worldwide, and it's like, do we give a shit? Obviously it's bad, but is that really what we want to hear? Like, people don't want to hear that. So I only post when it's necessary. Otherwise, I wouldn't really be doing it. But but anyway, just want to see, apparently Cunha was in Carrington. Yeah, about Mazraoui. So he did play against Burnley, but he didn't play for Morocco during the international break. So could that be anything? Actually, I did forget Dallow's not playing. So I mean, at least we don't need to see Dallow in a five at the back. At least Amorim won't pick him. I'm not gonna celebrate over injuries, of course. No, I'm not. But it's almost like you have a relief, because you don't need to see Amorim picking his favorite players. So but anyway, hope we win. Obviously I'll do a watch along. Anything else? No, that's about it. Yeah, only reason why I didn't upload was there's not really enough to talk about. Look, I could have made a video about Onana, but that would have lasted 2 minutes, so it was pretty pointless. But anyway, Premier League's back. Thank you guys for watching. Take care. See you in the next one.